I like to be right up front about the idea that I think is really worth spreading, and that is the idea that beauty is the object of love. When we're loving something or someone, it's their beauty that we're actually loving. For the last 10 years, I've been involved in studying traits related to beauty and being engaged by beauty. I've looked at 3 specific types of traits that humans have a great deal of variation with. One is the trait of being engaged by the moral inner beauty of others. One is the trait of being engaged by beauty in anything made by humans, design, the arts. And another is being engaged by natural beauty. People vary on these, right? Some people, they just go gaga over beauty in nature. Other people, they don't even go out in nature. Right? Some people are really good at noticing the inner beauty of people's behavior. Others just pass them by. So we have all sorts of different levels of these traits. This idea that beauty is the object of love is not a new idea. It's still worth spreading, but not a new idea. Plato had Socrates emphasize it in the dialogue called the Symposium, and the philosopher currently at Princeton, Alexander Nehamas, has also emphasized this idea in his book on happiness and beauty. However, what I bring to the table is psychological research that provides empirical evidence and not just good ideas, even though I love good ideas. In a study with over 5,000 participants with my colleagues Ravi Iyer and Megan Smith and Jonathan Haidt, we had people take a wide variety of different kinds of tests about love and some tests about how engaged they are by different kinds of beauty. So you can see up there in the upper left part, this represents people that are engaged by natural beauty. They see it out there, they feel it, they like it. They may not use the word beautiful, but that's what they're thinking and feeling. Those people that are high in that trait, we can predict that they will love others more than other people. It's not a huge effect, but it's there. And the next box down over there where we see artistic beauty, these represent people that are engaged by beauty and design, anything made by humans. They generally like art. And these people, we can predict they'll love others a little bit more than people that aren't engaged by art. But, as you might guess, the bottom box, representing the trait of being engaged by people's inner beauty, by recognizing people's moral beauty and their virtue and their beautiful actions, these people really love others. And in fact, our data show they're much more caring than other people. They have a much deeper agapic love for all humanity than other people. They have a much stronger empathic concern for other people. They value benevolence more than other people. And they're just plain more agreeable and nice. Now, what does it mean when we say that we love someone's inner beauty, right? It's kind of a mystical, metaphorical, poetic thing. But if we go back to the great philosopher Aristotle in his Nicomachean Ethics, he states that what is beautiful about a human being are their virtues. And all virtues are beautiful. They're within the human. He particularly liked to focus on courage, but that's because he was an Athenian. Psychological science has now put together a research measure that's both reliable and valid called the VIA questionnaire, and it is structured around 6 big human virtues that have been shown to be cross-culturally valued. And as you can see there, they're wisdom and courage and love and justice and temperance. It's kind of a boring one. And transcendence, my favorite. Using these 6 major virtues, they identified 24 different beautiful human strengths, built up a 240-item questionnaire, which you can go find by putting into Google VIA survey. That'll take you to the VIA Institute on Character. 30 to 45 minutes later, you will be the proud owner of your profile of beautiful strength, particularly noting what your top 5 are. Which also brings us to the practical part of this talk. I'd like you to encourage your friends, family members, perhaps your students, perhaps your coworkers, and encourage them also to take this test, and then ask them to give you their results. And look at their results and discuss it with them, and point out some circumstances in which you've seen them do those behaviors. And then memorize them, and then when you see them doing them in action, in their behavior, Point it out to them, validate them, use the language of the virtues, praise them a little, especially if they ask for the praise. I try to follow my own advice. I'm a horrible hypocrite, but I try not to be. And consequently, a few years ago, I invited my wife, my adult children, my teenage grandchild to also all complete this via test. I then took their top 5 strengths, and I put them on that piece of paper right there. And got a nice beetle magnet from my wife, put it up on the fridge, and so that we all kind of had this language and recognized what was really beautiful about each other, and tried to validate each other for our beautiful strengths. And interesting things can come of this. For instance, my youngest son, when he completed this, one of his top 5 strengths was creativity. And he said, "This test is wrong, Papa. I can't draw, I can't paint, I don't write poetry, I'm not creative." But the rest of his family was like, "Whoa, that's so untrue. You know, in the kitchen, as a culinary artist, you're fabulous. In the laboratories, biological laboratories, you're so creative in solving problems." And he thought, yeah. And it kind of changed his identity a little bit. He realized, whoa, yeah, I am a beautiful, creative person. Whoa, slow that ego down. I think some of the most interesting research done in the last 10 years has been done on an emotion that Jonathan Haidt has named elevation. And elevation got named because of the feeling of feeling elevated. And this emotion of elevation is caused when you notice beautiful human actions. When you observe a beautiful human action and you feel it in your heart, you're now experiencing the emotion of elevation. And when you're experiencing the emotion of elevation, several interesting things are going on inside of you. One of which is the trust-producing bonding neurotransmitter oxytocin is now flooding out through your body, and your cortex is building up action tendencies to do 2 things. One of which is you have this desire all of a sudden to be an even better person than you already are now, and you have this desire to actually go out and help and serve other people more. It may not be a conscious thought that you're thinking, but that's why I say it's an action tendency that's set up by this emotion. With my research colleagues, we also were able to do a study with over 500 people involved, in which we were able to demonstrate that yes, indeed, loving people, and especially loving the inner beauty of people, does predict the desire that you want to become a better person. If you look at the little bars in the upper right, those represent people who really notice and feel the inner beauty of others. And if you go across that figure, you see they score at the very, very tippy top of desiring to become better people. Conversely, if we look in the lower left bars, those are people that hardly notice the moral beauty of others. They are not noticing virtuous actions, and they're not being moved by them. And as you can see on the left there, they score much, much lower on their desire to become a better person. In the same study, we also were able to show that a love of people's moral beauty or inner beauty will actually predict how much you serve others. And you can see the exact same pattern here in this figure as in the previous one. Whoa, what's this fabulous painting by Bob Wilson doing here? How'd I get I'd now like to point out how religion and philosophy and science converge in explaining this love and beauty connection. If we think about religions from the ancient to the modern, if we look at the scriptures, let's say a Judaism, a Christianity, a Baha'i, we'll see in them that it explicitly says that humans are created in the image of God. If we look into Hindu scriptures, we'll see that the Atman, the soul, takes it a notch up and is actually the beauty of Brahma himself right there. Buddhism, of course, is a little different. Has a little different view on this. But personally, I find Buddha consciousness or vijnana a very beautiful thing. In the Muslims' Quran, it doesn't explicitly mention that people are made in the image of God, but it does mention in many surahs that the most beautiful names belong to Allah. So call on him by them. So if we're thinking about this idea that many religions see this relationship between God and humans are in this image of God, I'm guessing it doesn't mean that God's some kind of naked ape, right? Just a wild guess. I'm thinking that it probably means, if we examine again the way religions describe God, they tend to describe God as the most loving, right? The most just, the most transcendent, the most wise. So I'm thinking that is the image that's cast upon the human psyche. So if that's the case, my logic goes like this. God, by necessity, must be the most beautiful being in creation. Human psyche's created in that image. That human psyche's got to be full of beauty. But wait a minute. What if you don't buy into this opiate to the masses stuff? What if you're a nice atheist or agnostic, right? And say, what's evolution got to say about this? Well, it turns out, cross-culturally, all across the world, what is it that people find really beautiful? They find vistas beautiful. When they're up on top of something and get a nice, big, beautiful view, well, I just said it, it's a beautiful view. And people love to see lush vegetation, and they love to see waterways and bodies of water. Now, why is that? Adaptive and survival value, right? If you're up on the vista, you can see where the food sources are. If you're up on the vista, you can see what might be dangerous and come hurt you, and you can avoid it. If you can see lush vegetation, you're going to eat. If you can see water, you're going to drink. So over 1 million years, this got built into us as beautiful things. Wow, we are attracted to them, and they are beautiful. But it turns out it's exactly the same for these beautiful virtues, because they have adaptive and survival value. Think about living in a group of 150, 140 people, which your ancestors did for most of the life of humanity, and ask what's going to cause this group to survive and spread their genes. If they are a group in which the individuals really love and are willing to sacrifice for each other, is that group going to survive and spread its genes across the planet? You betcha. If it's a group that's governed by justice instead of tyranny, are they more likely to be cohesive, stay together, and make babies? Yes, they are. They're going to spread their genes. If they have a moderate amount of courage, not too foolhardy, but not cowards, they're more likely to survive and spread their genes? You betcha. If they're the type of people that listen to the wisdom of their elders, are they more likely to stay alive? Yes, they are. So, again, over the last many millennia, these things have become to be seen by beautiful by us, because the people that saw them as beautiful, they are your ancestors. They made babies. They made you. So again, back to the idea worth spreading. Beauty is the object of love, not a new idea. And in fact, it also comes from a very wonderful Greek myth. And the Greek myth is the myth of Psyche and Eros. Psyche is the most beautiful creature in the universe in the myth. Eros, also called Cupid by the Romans, right, it's god of love. And the Greek metaphor is that our soul is the most beautiful thing, just like Psyche is the most beautiful creature in the universe. Who falls in love with Psyche? But the god of love himself, Eros. So what's the metaphor here? It takes us right back to the idea worth spreading. Psyche has become the object of love. It's love's object. And what happens in the myth? When Psyche and Eros get hooked up, when love and your soul are like this, what's going to happen? That Psyche gets lifted to the heavens. Zeus gives her an immortal soul, and human beauty becomes divine. Just to close, I'd just like to remind you of the praxis involved in the idea that beauty is the object of love, which is the idea of becoming more mindful, seeking out the beauty of others. When we seek out the inner beauty of others and feel it in our heart, we will experience the emotion of elevation. And when we're feeling elevation, we'll desire to become an even better person than we are now. I'm sure you're like fabulous, but you'd like to be even better, right? And you will end up serving others even more than you do now.